Today we're going to do dividing rational numbers. Yesterday we did multiplying rational numbers. But before we can talk about dividing fractions, we have to talk about something that you have to use when dividing fractions, and that's a reciprocal, or what's known as the multiplicative inverse. The multiplicative inverse or reciprocal is just the fraction flipped over. So if I say what is the reciprocal of 7/16, the answer is 16 over 7. That's all it's asking for. So some of your homework today just wants you to flip the fraction. So that's all you got to do, flip it. Any questions on the reciprocal? Make sure you remember reciprocal because we're going to use it throughout the year. We use it a lot later on, especially when we're solving for variables. So make sure you know what the reciprocal is. Write this down. Before you can find the reciprocal of a mixed, like when you have a mixed number, before you can get the reciprocal of it, you have to change it to an improper fraction. Since it's negative, I go ahead and make my fraction negative. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 plus 1 is 19. So I write it as an improper fraction before I flip it. Some people like to skip this step and they'll get it wrong. So please don't do that. Now, what's the reciprocal of negative 19 over 3?
3 negative 19ths.
Okay, negative 3/19. Right? The whole fraction is negative. It doesn't really matter if you say negative 3 over 19 or 3 over negative 19. It doesn't matter. The whole thing's negative. But do not forget to keep the negative sign. Later we'll talk about the negative reciprocal. But right now we're just talking about the reciprocal. So it stays negative. If it's negative, it stays negative. Everybody understand? Alright, write this down. Now we're going to divide fractions. But here's the problem. You can't divide fractions. So instead what we do is we times by the reciprocal. We times by the multiplicative inverse. Because in essence what that does is that does division. Well, when I have that, I have to rewrite it as a multiplication problem. And I always flip the second number, the second fraction. The one that's doing the dividing. Okay, so it should be 5/3. You always flip the one that's doing the dividing. I've had students in the past that flip the first one. It won't come out right. It doesn't work that way. The number doing the dividing is the one that gets flipped. Everybody understand? So now I just multiply it just like we did yesterday. Is there anything I can reduce? No. So I take 4 times 5, I get 20. 9 times 3 is 27. If I couldn't reduce earlier, I probably can't reduce now. That's not always the case. Sometimes you can. Yeah, you can't reduce early, but you can reduce later. But not usually. If you can't reduce early, you can't reduce later. So here's my answer, 20 over 27. Any questions? All right. Write these down. 1/9 divided by 5/12. It's the same thing as taking 1/9 and timesing it by 12/5. Is there anything I can reduce?
9 and 12.
9 and 12. I can take 3 out of 9 and get 3. 3 out of 12 and get 4. Now I just multiply it. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 5 is 15. 4/15. Some of you didn't reduce it and you got 12/45. I can take 3 out of both of those. Any questions? 3/7 divided by 8. Hey, if I've got a fraction, okay, I'm dividing by a number, what I do is I write this over 1. Now it's a fraction. And now I times by the reciprocal, which is 1 over 8. Because dividing by 8 is the same thing as timesing by 1/8. Alright? So I work it out. There's nothing I can reduce. I get 3 over 56. And there's my answer. Negative 4 2/3 divided by 3 1/9. Before I can divide or multiply, we always have to change the improper fractions, right? That's not necessarily the case for adding and subtracting, but it is for multiplying and dividing. You have to change them in improper fractions. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14. So I've got negative 14 over 3. Divided by 3 times 9, which is 27. 27 plus 1 is 28 over 9. Notice that I didn't try and flip it on this step. Notice that I wrote it out as a division problem still. Because if you try and flip it while you're trying to figure out what the improper fractions are, you're going to get it wrong. That's where most people mess up. They don't want to write out the step. They think it's unnecessary. You do. You need to write it out. Now I can flip it. So I've got negative 14 thirds times 9 over 28. I can take 14 out of 14 and get 1, 14 out of 28 and get 2. And take 3 out of 3 and get 1, 3 out of 9 and get 3. That leaves me with negative 1 times 3, that's negative 3. 1 times 2 is 2, which I can reduce to negative 1 1/2. There's my answer. You've got 5 over 3AB divided by 15 over ABC. You have to times by the reciprocal, so I've got 5 over 3AB. I'm timesing it by ABC over 15. Is there anything I can reduce? Yes.
5 and 15.
5 and 15. I take 5 out of 5 and get 1. 5 out of 15, I get 3. Is there anything else?
No.
Actually, there is.
Wait, what?
Okay, actually, there is. If I have, even though I don't know what A is, and I don't know what B is, I don't know what C is, I see I have A on the bottom. Right? I have it on opposite sides. Okay, when I do that, timesing by A and then dividing by A, hey, cancel each other out. And that's essentially what I'm doing. It's like if I have 3 and I times it by 2, what do I get? 6. But what if then right after that I divide it by 2? What did I end with? 3. Isn't that what I started out with?
Yeah.
So didn't I kind of cancel those out? So anytime I have variables or numbers on opposite sides, I can cancel them out. So I can get rid of A. Can I do that with B?
Yes.
Yeah. Do I have anything else left? No. So I take 1 times C. You can write 1C, but I just normally write C. And then I have 3 times 3, which is?
9.
There's my answer.
Why did I have trouble?
Your homework assignment, make sure you write 3 complete sentences for problem 46.